Wealth is not a random occurrence, nor is it reserved for special people. It is built little by little from simple decisions made every day, especially when no one is watching. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that money follows the direction of choices, not desires. Many people say they want to be rich, but continue making decisions that maintain exactly the same financial life. The central point here is to understand that wealth requires awareness. Awareness of where you are today, where you want to go, and especially what needs to be left behind on this path. Making conscious sacrifices does not mean living with suffering or giving up everything that brings joy. It means knowing how to choose. It is realizing that not everything that gives immediate pleasure contributes to a stable future. While most people seek comfort now, those who build wealth think about security, freedom, and tranquility down the road. It's like planting a tree. In the first years, it doesn't provide shade or fruit, but whoever keeps watering it, even without seeing quick results, reaps something much greater later. Kiyosaki makes it clear that wealth is born when you begin to question automatic habits. Why do I spend this way? Why do I follow this pattern? Why do I accept always living on the edge? When these questions arise, the mindset begins to change, and this change is the true beginning of prosperity. It's not about how much you earn today, but about the decisions you are willing to make now to build a tomorrow that is financially freer, more secure, and less dependent on chance. Helping family is a noble gesture, and no one is saying that's wrong. The problem arises when this help happens before you have a solid financial foundation. Robert Kiyosaki explains that many people end up sacrificing themselves so much for others that they never manage to move forward. It's like trying to fill someone else's cup when your own is empty. At first, you can even help a little, but over time this becomes a constant burden, generating stress, guilt, and frustration. When you help without having structure, you end up creating dependency, not solution. You get used to putting out financial fires instead of building something lasting. Kiyosaki teaches that the smartest path is to reverse this logic. First, organize your financial life, build reserves, develop income sources, and learn to make money work for you. Only after that does your help become strong, stable, and truly transformative. It may seem like selfishness at first glance, but it's not. It's responsibility. When you grow financially, you begin to help more efficiently and for much longer. Instead of small helps that only solve the problem of the month, you begin to offer opportunities, guidance, and security. True love, in this context, is not in sacrificing yourself until you break, but in strengthening yourself to sustain, support, and protect those you love without putting your own financial life at risk. There is an invisible price in sleepless nights. It's not just the money spent on outings, drinks, and excesses, but the energy that goes away the next day. Robert Kiyosaki draws attention to something simple but powerful. Tired people make bad decisions. When the body is exhausted, the mind loses clarity, focus diminishes, and discipline disappears. And without discipline, no financial construction sustains itself. Trading constant partying for quality sleep is not giving up on life. It's choosing to live better. Proper rest improves concentration, increases productivity, and strengthens the ability to learn new things, like investments, business, and financial control. While many spend the weekend trying to forget their problems, those who think about the future use that time to recover energy, reflect, and prepare for the next week. Kiyosaki teaches that financial success begins in routine. Small choices like sleeping early, waking up with energy, and having a clear mind create an enormous advantage over time. It's not about never going out or never having fun, but about balance. When you reduce excesses and protect your rest, you gain something much more valuable than a hectic night. You gain clarity to see opportunities and strength to act when they appear. And if this content is making sense to you so far, take this opportunity now to like the video. This simple gesture shows that this type of teaching needs to reach more people who also want to change their lives. If you're enjoying the way we're building this story and feel that these ideas speak to your reality, leave a like now and stay with me, because the next sacrifices can completely change the way you see money and choices. One of the most difficult sacrifices doesn't involve money, but people. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that the environment directly influences the results you have in life. When you constantly live with people who don't share your goals, your dreams begin to seem exaggerated, impossible, or even wrong. Little by little, you reduce your ambitions to fit in, and this happens almost without noticing. Misaligned relationships drain energy. They are conversations that demotivate, jokes that diminish your plans, and advice based on fear, not vision. These people don't always want bad for you. Often they are just projecting their own limits onto you. The problem is that hearing this every day, you start to believe that growing financially is too risky or outside your reality. Kiyosaki makes it clear that distancing yourself is not rejecting anyone, it's protecting your future. Alignment of values means being close to those who understand your efforts, respect your decisions, and encourage your growth. At times, walking alone is necessary to hear your own voice clearly. This distancing creates space for new connections, new ideas, and new opportunities that match the life you are determined to build. Not every friendship does harm in an obvious way. Some seem harmless, pleasant, and even comfortable, but little by little, they limit your growth. Robert Kiyosaki explains that human beings tend to adapt to the environment in which they live. If you are surrounded by people who don't seek to evolve, who constantly complain about life, work, and money, this mentality ends up becoming normal for you too, even if at first you don't agree with it. Over time, these friendships create a pattern. The topics repeat themselves, dreams diminish, and any attempt to change is seen as exaggeration or illusion. When you talk about investing, learning something new, or changing paths, laughter emerges, criticism disguised as jokes, or phrases like, "This isn't for us." This type of coexistence doesn't push you forward, it just keeps everything as it is. Kiyosaki teaches that you become the average of the people you spend the most time with. This doesn't mean despising anyone, but understanding that growth requires difficult choices. Sometimes, temporary loneliness is necessary to break old patterns. Being alone for a while can be uncomfortable, but it's in that silence that you develop clarity, discipline, and focus. And when this new level is reached, new friendships naturally emerge, aligned with your values, your vision of the future, and your real desire to grow financially and as a person. One of the most common habits of those who live in financial straits is trying to appear successful to those looking from the outside. Robert Kiyosaki explains that many people work hard, earn money, but remain poor because they spend it all trying to maintain an image. Expensive clothes, new phones, cars above budget, and installment purchases don't build wealth. They only create the illusion of it. This type of spending brings quick but short pleasure. The feeling of status lasts little, while the debt remains for months or years. Little by little, the money that could be being used to invest, study, or create new income sources goes away in installments that only generate worry. Kiyosaki teaches that truly rich people don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. They understand that financial growth happens away from the spotlight. Sacrificing the desire to impress is liberating. When you stop competing with others, you begin to focus on yourself. Money becomes a tool for building, not for appearance. Instead of asking, "What will they think of me?" you begin to think, "Does this bring me closer to or further from my financial freedom?" This mindset shift completely transforms the way you spend, save, and invest, creating a solid path to a calmer and more prosperous future. Relationships occupy an enormous space in a person's emotional and mental life. Robert Kiyosaki warns that when a relationship is not aligned with your goals, it can become one of the biggest distractions on the path to wealth. It's not just about visible conflicts, but the lack of support, understanding, and encouragement to grow. When the partner doesn't believe in your plans, each step forward becomes an internal struggle. A misaligned relationship consumes energy that could be being used to learn, work better, and build something solid. Constant arguments, insecurity, and fear of moving forward cause many people to give up important opportunities. Little by little, the dream of growing financially is exchanged for the need to keep the peace at any cost. Kiyosaki teaches that this has a high price, even if it doesn't appear immediately. The right partner doesn't delay, they strengthen. They understand that growth requires effort, time, and sometimes temporary sacrifices. Relationships that add value bring emotional support, dialogue, and vision for the future. Sacrificing relationships that don't add up is not coldness, it's maturity. When you choose to walk alongside someone who respects your vision, your decisions become firmer, your focus increases, and the path to wealth becomes lighter and more possible. Many people confuse comfort with progress. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that buying expensive objects before the right time can delay years of financial growth. Luxury cars, watches, latest generation electronics, and other flashy goods give a momentary sense of victory, but in practice, they take money out of your pocket every month. Besides losing value over time, these items generate maintenance, taxes, and constant worries. True wealth is usually silent. Those who are building something solid prefer to direct resources to assets that generate income, like businesses, investments, and knowledge. While some show results, others are creating the foundation. Kiyosaki explains that many people go broke financially, not from lack of income, but from excess luxury too early. They trade future freedom for immediate comfort. Sacrificing unnecessary luxuries doesn't mean living poorly, but living with intelligence. It's understanding that each real spent today can be a worker in your future. When you choose simplicity now, you are buying tranquility later. This sacrifice creates space for money to grow, for opportunities to arise, and so that, at the right time, luxury comes as a consequence, not as a trap. Impatience is one of the greatest enemies of wealth. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that many people give up halfway because they want results too quickly. They start something new, invest a little, study for a few weeks, and when they don't see immediate returns, they conclude that it doesn't work. This behavior prevents the construction of anything solid, whether a business, an investment, or a new financial mindset. Building wealth is like learning to ride a bicycle. At first you fall, lose balance, and feel you'll never make it. But those who persist learn. The problem is that most people abandon the process too early. Kiyosaki warns that seeking shortcuts, easy promises, and quick gains usually leads to losses, frustrations, and bad decisions. Consistent money grows slowly, but it grows safely. Sacrificing haste is accepting time as an ally. It's understanding that each small advance counts, even when it seems insignificant. When you develop patience, you begin to make better decisions, respect processes, and build calmly. This behavior creates stability, confidence, and lasting results. Those who learn to wait and act consistently end up going much further than those who live running after the next shortcut. Many people say they want to change their lives, but deep down, they keep looking for the easiest path. Robert Kiyosaki explains that this mentality is one of the greatest financial traps. Whenever something requires effort, study, or patience, the mind accustomed to ease tries to give up. Phrases like, "This is too complicated," "I don't have time," or "This isn't for me," arise precisely when transformation begins to happen. The truth is simple. Everything that has real value takes work. A healthy body requires discipline, A good relationship requires dialogue, and wealth requires learning, mistakes, and consistency. When someone avoids effort, they end up accepting a limited life, always dependent on salary, favors, or luck. Kiyosaki teaches that lasting success doesn't come from quick schemes, but from solid habits repeated over time. Abandoning the mentality of ease is taking responsibility for your own life. It's stopping expecting magical solutions and starting to act with consistency, even when no one is applauding. This is the point where many stop, but it's also where few continue, and it's those few who build real financial freedom. When you understand that today's effort is the price of tomorrow's tranquility, everything changes. The path stops seeming heavy and starts making sense, because now you know exactly why you're walking. Now that you've come this far, you realize that getting rich isn't about a big stroke of luck, but about a sequence of conscious choices made over time. Each sacrifice we talked about is not a loss, it's an exchange. You give up something that brings momentary pleasure to gain something much greater in the future. Tranquility, freedom, and control of your own life. Robert Kiyosaki reinforces that most people don't fail from lack of ability, but from giving up too early or not wanting to leave the comfort zone. Those who continue, even when it's difficult, begin to see money in a different way. It stops being a constant problem and becomes a tool that works for you while you live with more security and less fear of tomorrow. If all this made sense to you, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about money, mindset, and real choices, without easy promises and without illusory shortcuts. And if 2026 will be the year you finally decide to change your life, stay with me until the next content. Because the first step has already been taken. You've started to think differently. After understanding all these sacrifices, there is something even more important that Robert Kiyosaki always reinforces, but that many people ignore. There's no point in knowing the ideas if they remain only in the field of reflection. The real turnaround happens when you start to apply, even if gradually, in your daily life. Perhaps you're thinking that some of these changes seem difficult, or that they will require giving up things you're already used to. And that's normal. Every real transformation generates discomfort at the beginning, but it's exactly this discomfort that separates those who just consume content from those who really change their lives. Each small different decision you make today creates a cumulative effect down the road. Kiyosaki teaches that wealth is built when you take control of your choices, even when no one is pressuring you. It's not about doing everything at once, but about starting. Adjusting habits, reviewing priorities, learning to say no to what takes you away from your goals, and yes to what builds your future. This is the point where many stop, but it's also the point where a new story begins. And if you feel this content is opening your eyes, stay here. The next videos will deepen these concepts even more, showing how to transform this mindset into practical actions. Because understanding is important, but acting is what really changes the game. Following this line, it's important to understand that the greatest change doesn't happen outside, but inside you. When you start to see money as something that needs to be directed, not just spent, your relationship with life changes. You begin to observe your choices better, notice where you're losing energy, and start acting with more intention. None of this happens overnight, but it happens consistently when there is awareness. Robert Kiyosaki always reinforces that most people live on autopilot. They work, pay bills, get tired, complain, and repeat the cycle. Those who decide to leave this pattern need to accept that they will think differently from the majority for a while. And this period can seem lonely, confusing, and even scary, but it's exactly at this moment that the foundation of wealth is being built, away from the noise and other people's opinions. When you accept these sacrifices as part of the process, something powerful happens. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start feeling responsible for your own future. And responsibility doesn't weigh when there is purpose. On the contrary, it liberates. You begin to realize that each more conscious choice brings you closer to a life with less fear, less pressure, and much more control. If you've come this far, it's not by chance. Perhaps this is the moment when you stop just watching content and start applying, even if slowly. Stay with me, because true financial transformation begins when the decision stops being emotional and becomes definitive. And it's exactly here that many people differentiate themselves without realizing it. Because while some watch this type of content just as entertainment, others begin to see themselves in the story. They begin to remember their own choices, repeated habits, postponed decisions. Robert Kiyosaki always says that the first sign of real change is when you stop looking for culprits and start observing your own patterns with honesty. Perhaps you can't change everything now, and that's okay. The mistake is not in going slowly, but in not going. Wealth doesn't require perfection, it requires consistency. A small adjustment today, another tomorrow, and when you realize it, your way of thinking is no longer the same. You begin to spend more consciously, choose better who you walk with, protect your time and your energy. These silent changes are the most powerful. Over time, something curious happens. Money begins to respond to your behavior, not by magic but by logic. You avoid mistakes that previously seemed normal. You see opportunities where you previously saw only risk. And mainly, you stop living putting out financial fires and start building something that makes sense in the long term. There comes a moment in life when you need to decide who will command your future. You or other people's opinions. Robert Kiyosaki teaches that many people remain financially trapped, not from lack of ability, but from fear of being judged, fear of seeming different, fear of making mistakes in public, fear of not being understood. And this fear, silent, steals years of life and opportunities. When you sacrifice the need for approval, something powerful happens inside you. You stop asking permission to grow. Stop waiting for applause to change. You come to understand that those who really evolve are almost always questioned at the beginning. Great transformations begin in silence, when no one believes, when no one understands, when only you know what you're trying to build. Kiyosaki makes it clear that financially free people learn to trust their own vision more than external noise. They know that criticisms don't pay bills and opinions don't build wealth. What builds wealth is consistency, courage, and decisions aligned with the future you desire. And this requires emotional firmness. If you feel deep down that you were born for something greater than just surviving financially, this sacrifice is inevitable. Letting go of the need for approval doesn't isolate you, it strengthens you. It gives you focus, clarity, and direction. And when you start walking with conviction, even without applause, the result comes. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to show yourself that you were capable of going beyond. Following this point, there is something that closes this entire cycle in a powerful way: the internal decision. Robert Kiyosaki always reinforces that nothing truly changes while the change is only external. Reading, watching videos, listening to advice is important, but the turnaround happens when, in silence, you decide that you no longer accept the same reality. This moment is not noisy. There's no announcement, no audience, no validation. It's when you look at your own life and understand that continuing the same way costs more than changing. It costs time, energy, health, and postponed dreams. And when this awareness arrives, something falls into place. You stop fighting the process and start respecting it. Real motivation doesn't come from ready-made phrases, it comes from clarity that each sacrifice you make today is an investment in future peace. Clarity that saying no now is what will allow you to say yes later, without guilt and without fear. Clarity that no one will live the consequences of your choices for you. If you've come this far, it wasn't by chance. Perhaps this is the point where you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start with what you have, even slowly, even with doubts, because those who decide to continue despite fear are already ahead of the majority. And it's like this, step by step, by decision, that a new financial story begins to be written. If everything that has been said so far spoke to you on some level, then stop for a moment and like this video. This simple gesture helps the content reach more people who also need to hear this message now. And if you want to continue learning about money, mindset, and choices that really transform life, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Remember one thing, no one changes their life from one day to the next, but every change begins with a clear decision. 2026 can be just another year. Or it can be the year you finally take control of your financial life. The difference is not in what you desire, but in what you decide to do from now on. Stay with us, because here you won't find easy promises, but rather awareness, direction, and truth. The path may be longer, but it's solid. And those who build with vision don't depend on luck, they build their own future. Before leaving, if this video made sense to you, leave your like now. This shows the algorithm that this type of content really helps and needs to reach more people who want to truly change their lives. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving videos about money, mindset, and financial freedom, without easy promises and without illusory shortcuts. Share this video with someone you know needs to hear this message today. Sometimes a decision begins with a simple reflection. Stay with us, because here the focus is to build awareness, discipline, and a more secure financial future, step by step.